Mishnah Gimel. Oh, interesting. Mishnah Gimel. Kol hayotze min ha'etz, anything that comes out of a tree, any product that comes out from a tree, ve'asa mimeno ptila, and you made from it a wick, like we discussed before. You remember the bark, between the bark and the thing, there's like this material that you take. If it comes from the tree and you make from it a wick, en madlikim bo ner Shabbat, you don't light with it candle on Shabbat, ela pishtan, besides flax. Moshe, what's the question? You know what flax is, Moshe? Pishtan? So what's the question? Moshe wasn't ready for it.
פשטן זה צמח, זה גם, אבל זה לא עץ.
Oh, that's the question. What do you mean, ela pishtan?
זה לא עץ.
It's on a tree. That's right. What kind of ela pishtan? You should know. You don't use any trees except pishtan. Pishtan is on a tree. Why are you telling me? So let's see. She'af al pi shenikra etz, because it says it's true. Pishtan is not a tree. But
נקרא עץ.
no, it's not a tree. But what's the problem? The Torah calls it tree. She'af al pi shenikra etz, that even though it's called a tree, כמו שכתוב, where is it called a tree? ביהושע, it says, ותתמנם בפשתי העץ. And it says that when she hid them, Rachav, when she hid Yeshua and Pinchas, was Pinchas? When Yeshua and Pinchas, when she hid them, she says she put them in the pishtei ha'etz, in the flax, the tree flax. So she used the words tree on pishtan. So it says maybe because once you have the rule that you're not allowed to light in anything that comes from the tree, people are going to say, you know what, the Torah specifically called pishtan a tree. Maybe it said it because it wanted you to tell you not to light with pishtan, not to light with flax. So it says no, even though flax is called a tree in the Torah, since it's not a tree, we are allowed to light with it. Okay? מדליקים בפתילה שעושים ממנו לאחר ניפוצו. You're still allowed to light with the flax after you worked it. Beram, but cannabis, cannabis, like today.
Okay.
Cannabis, yeah.
גם היה?
Yeah, what do you mean גם היה?
היו עושים מזה דברים?
Yeah.
מה אתה אומר?
Yeah, it was in the old time. It was the major, the most of the ropes used to make from cannabis. I think even today maybe the ropes from the ship. What are they made from? I think some of them are metal, but I think the big thick ropes, you know, like the ship, the big ships. I think it's made out of cannabis. In the old time for sure. I don't know what to use today. Cannabis, וצמר גפן, and cotton wool, אינם יוצאים מן העץ, they don't come out from the tree, אלא מיני זרע הם, it comes out from the seed. הילקח מדליקים בהם, therefore you light with them, ואומנם אף פשטן מן זרע הוא, also flax, it's a seed, אלא הואיל והוא נקרא עץ, but since the Torah calls it עץ, לפיכך צריכה המשנה להשמיענו שאף על פי כן מדליקים בו. So the Mishnah came to teach us that even though the Torah calls it tree, we're still allowed to light with it. And other things. Nothing to do with Shabbat. וכל היוצא מן העץ אינו מטמא טומאת העולים. Anything that comes out of the tree does not become defiled as a ohel. In other words, it doesn't become tameh, it doesn't become impure. And we're going to explain what it means. אם עשה ממנו ohel, if he made, for example, from anything that made out of no, from anything that comes out of a tree, which means you know, we said that there's a thing in between the bark. There's a material that they made. You said you're allowed to make wicks out of it. So he says you can make whatever you want. Yeah. So if you made something else and you made oil from it, you made a tent from it, it doesn't become impure. And what does it mean? Doesn't become impure? אם עשה ממנו אוהל והיה מת בתוכו, if you made from it a tent and there's a dead person inside the tent, אומנם כל מה שבתוך האוהל טמא. It's very strange, think about it. Let's say we put a tent up over here and then there's a dead person in one place. Everything underneath it now becomes impure. Right? So you would assume that also what becomes impure?
Structure.
The tent itself. It says no, because it's made out of a tree, it doesn't become impure. Yeah. אבל האוהל עצמו אינו טמא. But the tent itself does not become impure. ואינו טעון, and therefore לא טעון הזעה, you don't need to sprinkle with it to purify it, ולא טבילה, you don't have to put it in the mikveh. You don't have to put it in the mikveh in the end. Doesn't require a pit because it doesn't receive impurity. But ela pishtan. But if you made your oil out of flax, pishtan. She'im asa oil me pishtan. But if you made if you made a tent out of flax, ve'il alamet, and then it covered the dead person, afa oil atzmo tameh. If it's made out of flax, even the tent itself becomes tameh. In other words, the same ruling, you would think it's because the Torah called it etz, it's not metame. So it comes to tell you, no, for everything it's not a tree. Don't think that for something it is a tree.
So, metame.
Yeah. So it means it's not a tree. Because it's not a tree, it is metame. Because if it was a tree, it wouldn't be metame. Shekatuv, because it's written, vehiza al haoel. It says, and sprinkle on the tent. And then it says, velemedim begzara shava, ohel, and we learn tent. Mina mishkan, shekatuv bo vayifros et haoel al mishkan. And there was a covering on the tabernacle. Ma oil ha'amur b'mishkan lo haya bo davar yotze min ha'etz ela pishtan. Just like the covering of the tabernacle had nothing that comes out of a tree except flax. And even though you want to tell me that flax is a tree, because it says in the Torah it's a tree, it says you don't have to worry about it. כמו שכתוב, 10 יריעות 6 מחזר ו6 היינו פשטן. Like it says, there were 10 parchments of 6 מחזר that were sewn together, and 6 means flax. אף אוהל האמור בטומאה אינו על פשטן. So when the Torah tells us that you have to purify the oil and sprinkle on it, it's talking about what kind of oil? An oil of pishtan, of flax, which is does be receive impurity. Okay. Ptilat. Oh, this is going to be difficult. Okay. Ptilat habeged shekipla. Over here you have like this. You have a garment, and you decided to make from this garment wicks. So, but you didn't tear it off before the Yom Tov. What did you do before the Yom Tov or before Shabbos? You folded it. You folded it to become small. In other words, if you tore it off, it's not a problem before Yom Tov. Over here, you didn't tear it off before. You just folded it. You didn't cut it.
Right.
You just folded it until it looks like small. So it says it's going to be a problem lighting it. It says, let's see why. Ptilat habeged shekipla. It is a wick of a garment that you folded. Or shekipel chatichat beged vegadal meno ptila. You only folded, you didn't cut the garment, and you made from it a wick. Velo hivheva. And you didn't already burn it a little bit before Shabbat. If you burned it a little bit before Shabbat, you'll be fine. But if you didn't burn it a little bit before Shabbat, you're not allowed to use it on Shabbat. So it says, why? לא חרכה על האש, שפתילה חדשה חורכים על האש כדי שתדלק יפה. It says, why did they burn a little bit? So it will light good. Anybody who did Hanukkah, who light candles, you realize that if you light it a little bit beforehand, it's easier to light. Right? If you just try to light it fresh.
Or that you put it in for a while. It's sufek.
Yeah, that's a different problem. But the lighting it, just if you light it once, it makes it easier. So that's why people do it. So if you did light it, you're fine. But if you didn't light it, you're not fine. So what's the difference? So let's see. Rabbi Eliezer, it doesn't even explain. It does. Rabbi Eliezer says, Tme'ah. It is tame, it is impure. Why is it impure? Ho'il velo hivheva. It says, because you didn't burn it a little bit before Shabbat, lo yatz'a dain mitorat beged al yedei hakipul. It says, what happens over here? It says, this is what's going to happen. If you cut the garment, you made a wick. So now you have a wick before Shabbos, you don't have a problem. If you didn't cut it, you just folded it, now there's two opinions. Some say, if you folded it, the folding makes it into a wick. In other words, it's not a garment anymore. And some say the folding does nothing because I can just open it and I still have my garment. The garment is still a garment. I just folded it. It's still a garment. So this is the machloket. So some says it's a wick, it's not a garment. And some say it's a garment, it's not a wick. What's the problem if it's a garment? If it's a garment and you lit it up before Shabbos, it's not a garment anymore because you just ruined it. But if it wasn't lit up before Shabbos, according to one opinion, it's still what? It's still a garment. V'lachen, so if it's a garment, what are you doing? You are, when you're starting to light the Shabbos candle, you are making it from a garment into not being a garment. So let's see what will be the problem. Rabbi Eliezer אומר, תמאה, לא יצא עדיין מתורת בגד על ידי הקיפול, ולכן היא מקבלת טומאה כדין בגד. So it still receives, it's going to explain, it still receives impurity just like a garment. ותherefore, ואין מדליקים בה ner Shabbat, and you're not allowed to light with it a candle of Shabbos. Why? שכיוון שאינה מחורכת, because it's still not burnt a little bit, אינה דולקת יפה, it's not burning nicely, וחוששים שמא יתה, and you are worried maybe it is if it doesn't light good, like we do in Shabbos, we're going to light it. I don't know about the impurity yet. Let's continue to read, maybe we'll find out. Rabbi Akiva omer tehora. Rabbi Akiva says it is pure, which means eina mekabelet tuma, because it's not a garment anymore. Mipnei shakipul levado mevatel ota miturat beged, because just by folding it, you make it not a garment anymore. Umadlikim ba, and you are allowed to light with it. Af al pi she'ena mechurechet, even though it is not burnt, mutad להדליק בה ner Shabbat. You're allowed to light with it Shabbos candles. שאין הבהוב אלא תוספת אורה בלבד. Because it says when you light the wick on fire, you're only adding a light. You're not worried that it's going to extinguish. Also, the Gemara is going to explain what our case over here. בגמרא מבואר שמדובר כאן בחתיכת בגד שיש בה 3 אצבעות על 3 אצבעות מצומצמות. We're talking about a garment. What's a garment? You can't use a shirt, it's too big. Right. But a handkerchief, for example, it says a handkerchief has a certain measurement, and if you can use it as a handkerchief or whatever, the smallest amount of measurement, that's what we're talking about. And what are we talking about? We're not talking about face any mask. Friday.
Face mask.
I think even smaller than a face mask.
A garment.
A garment, a face mask. Yeah, but this is, I think they have even smaller ones.
Looking for a little garment.
I think they probably had some small little garments. The best examples is what I'll give you. The best example for this. The best example for this is what humans use to check themselves.
What?
What women use to check themselves.
Oh.
That's the best example. That's the best example I can think of. That's the smallest example.
Okay.
Yeah. וביום טוב שחל להיות ערב שבת, and it's talking about not every Friday. It's talking about only on a Yom Tov. That happens to be on a Friday. שהכל סוברים כרבי יהודה, that what's the problem if it's a Yom Tov? Because if it's a Yom Tov that happens to be on a Friday, you are not allowed to make a vessel on a Yom Tov. Right? You're not allowed to make things on a Yom Tov. And over here you have a garment, according to one opinion. Those who says it's on a garment, says go ahead, light it, it's on a garment. By you folding it already, Erev Shabbat, you made it not a garment. But if you didn't, but if those who say that the folding doesn't make it out of a garment, it's still a garment, it's on a wick, when you start lighting it on a Yom Tov, you're breaking the garment and you're making a wick. And you're doing it when? On a Yom Tov. And you're not allowed to make things on a Yom Tov. You just carried a wick by just starting. But if it was already burnt before it, it's not a garment anymore.
Either burnt or folded.
According to one opinion. Because some say folding is good.
And some say folding is not enough, it's still a garment.
That's right. So that's the idea.
You gotta light it first.
That's right. שהכל סוברים כרבי יהודה שמסיקים ביום טוב בכלים שלמים אבל לא בשברי כלים. You're allowed to light in Yom Tov in full vessels but not in broken vessels שנשברו באותו יום, that were made in that day. לפי שיש בזה איסור מוקצה משום נולד, because it is מוקצה because it was created on that day. וכן סוברים הכל, and everybody admits, שהמדליק נר שבת צריך להדליק רוב היוצא מן הפתילה חוץ לנר. And they say that when you are lighting in a candle of Shabbos, you need to light the majority that comes out of the majority of the wick that is outside the wick. Then it's called it caught it. Hilkach dat Rabbi Eliezer, therefore, according to the opinions of Rabbi Eliezer, שאין מדליקים בה, you don't light with such a candle, לפי שקיפולה אינה מבטל מתורת כלי. According to him, when you just folded it, it's still a garment. It's not a wick yet. וכשהדליק בה קצת, and now, on Yom Tov, when you're going to start lighting it, הואיל ויש בה שלוש אצבעות ושלוש אצבעות צלמות, still it's still considered a garment, and it's not a wick yet, הרי זה נעשה שבר כלי. Now you're breaking a vessel to make another thing. שפחות משלוש על שלוש אינו נחשב כלי. Once it becomes 3 on 3, it's not big. In other words, you're destroying a garment. What are you doing? Who told you you're allowed to destroy garments? וכשמוסיף להדליק כדי להשלים רוב היוצא מן הפלילה, נמצא מדליק בשבר כלי שנשבר ביום טוב. And when you continue to light it, you are lighting in something that was created on Yom Tov, and therefore you're not allowed to. ורבי עקיבא אומר, Rabbi Akiva says, מדליקים בה. He says, don't worry, you're allowed to light in it. Why? שהואיל וקיפלה מערב יום טוב, because once you folded it from before יום טוב, שהרי אין גודלים כלואים פתילה ביום טוב, because you're not allowed to make wicks on יום טוב, לפיכך בטלה כבר מתורת כלי. From that moment it's already nullified from becoming a vessel. וכשמדליק בה ביום טוב, אין כאן שבר כלי שנשבר ביום טוב. So when you lighten it in Yom Tov, we don't have, it's already, in other words, Rabbi Akiva says, you're allowed to fold it and you're not breaking it.